People's homes, people's lives, now shells. Nothing left. When fire rips through, it is unforgiving. Its embers don't respect borders. There are no boundaries. Some have lost everything and watched their homes burn down on TV.
Mum and Dad's house back onto the fields. Unfortunately, we've seen live footage via other news channels where we've seen that the house has burnt down. It's just devastating. We just can't believe what's happened. It's just all those years, memories, everything just gone. They're only in the clothes that they're standing in, so we're trying to find clothes for them. We've been down to Tesco's to get their essentials today. It's really difficult, and it's difficult at the ages they're at to comprehend it as well.
Everything you built over a whole lifetime has gone.
Yeah, exactly.
This is behind their house today. Scorched earth that has not only destroyed homes, but crops too. The UK's arable harvest is already expected to be the smallest on record. From the people that we've spoken to so far, the fire started there where the fields are completely black now. We've got the burning embers left here and the remains. And then if you whip across this golf course here, you can see just how badly burned it is. And it's still tinder dry. It's really hot, dry conditions. If you look over my left shoulder as well, you can see another housing estate. And the fire brigade have been working to dampen down the tree line there so that that one doesn't get affected as well. Fire can outpace anyone. It's always faster than people expect. Charles said him too.
The flames are actually lapping up to the house.
He was helping people out of their homes. He said the power went out. People were jumping their property's electric gates because they were trapped inside.
I saw like a massive fire, plume of smoke. It was very, very intense, and then I saw a second plume of smoke coming through our woodland, and at that point realised there was actually multiple fires. The flames were quite, coming this way and were hot, but the smoke just takes you, and I think it takes your breath.
It can overpower fire crews too. Reports of some teams being taken to hospital with heat stroke in parts of the country. In Stourbridge this afternoon, many continued to work on the ground.
The fire spread rapidly and has affected 38 domestic properties. Of these, sadly, 19 have been fully destroyed and a further 18 have sustained damage. All the way across here, all the way over here, it's jumped the road.
Down the road, the Prime Minister met with some of the emergency services, also visiting evacuation centres, which have taken in hundreds of care home residents. Fire brigades unions have already said that they need more resources across the board.
There are thousands of firefighters out there in this heat doing back-breaking work. We have taken a decision to deploy nationally aerial firefighting support, so commissioned nationally. But that obviously wasn't available here, but it will be available elsewhere, and it would have made a difference.
Fire services have been under continued pressure across the country throughout these heat waves. In Stoke-on-Trent, more burned out houses. There have been arrests on suspicion of arson in the Golden Hill area and in Kings Norton in Birmingham. And more than 1,000 wildfires have been recorded across Britain this year. An emergency COBRA meeting has been held to coordinate what the government should do next, with moves for emergency financial support. Because now, there is a great deal that is needed.
Francis Reid there, and as you've probably just heard, the UK government issued an emergency service alert on all mobile phones a couple of minutes ago, warning of the very high risk of wildfires across the country. Well, a little earlier, I spoke to the Fire Brigade's Union General Secretary, Steve Wright, and asked him what was different about the threat which firefighters are now facing this year.
I think it's the scale of the fires, but it's also the amount of fires at the same point in time, which is causing a massive stretch across resources on every single UK fire and rescue service right now. We've had major incidents declared in all parts of the UK, some running at the moment, incidents where we need 120 firefighters, 26 fire engines to put out the fire in the New Forest. So these are I say unprecedented, the amount we're dealing with, but not something that we didn't expect. It's been on the National Risk Register since 2013.
I believe it's the Welsh FBU saying, we're talking about potentially military assistance for something like this. Is that a goer?
Well, it may help in the short term, but the long-term thing that we need is more firefighters on the front line to put out fires. We lost 12,000 from 2010, so 12,000 less firefighters on the front line to deal with just the run-of-the-mill day-to-day incidents that we attend.
And notwithstanding that plea for more resources, talk from the Prime Minister today of more planes, aerial support to drop water. Again, is that feasible? Does that work in our terrain?
That aerial support will help in some cases. Some fires I've been on historically, it would have assisted. I don't think it will help with all fires that we're seeing at the moment, the Stour Bridge in West Midlands, fires in Scotland, and also fires that we've had in the capital city as well. I don't think the aerial support would necessarily be able to deliver what we need.
This is not 1976 and the drought then. We've had 50 years of climate research. We know that this is being accelerated, made worse by fossil fuel pollution. As a firefighter, as a fire brigade union, what do you say to that challenge?
Well, look, I think the point we're making is we're on the front line of the climate change at the moment. We're attending more wildfires, more flooding incidents, more extreme weather events. Firefighters across the UK are in dangerous situations without, as you can see in your photo behind you, without the adequate personal protective equipment that we need, as is the norm in other parts of the world right now where they're extinguishing fires on this scale. We need to make sure we've got the investment there. It's why we called for a national emergency summit on wildfires in July. The government have agreed to that. I've had conversations today about what that looks like in the autumn.
Right, well, telling Channel 4 News that you need more resources and more firefighters to put these things out is one thing. Telling the Prime Minister and the government is another. Are you getting a hearing? Are they listening?
Yeah, I've spoken to Andy. I spoke to Andy this morning. He understands the risks that firefighters are facing.
I'm sure he understands, but what's he
he's passed on his
here?
support, and I think that is one thing maybe we've not heard in the past. I think as the mayor in Manchester, he was a crossfire. They were one of the 2 fire services that actually increased the number of fire engines they've got in recent years. When
Saddleworth and so forth.
Yeah, and where everywhere else has been cut to the bone. Yes, there's no pot of money that they can dip into and deliver 5,000 firefighters tomorrow, but there needs to be a move towards that.
And if there isn't, where are we going?
I think it's really dangerous, actually. The reports we're getting back from all parts of the UK from firefighters is they are on the incident ground for 10 to 15 hours at a time. They do not have the adequate PPE, they do not have the welfare facilities in place, and they're struggling to keep up with the demand. I've spoken to firefighters that work in our control rooms that yesterday in some parts of the country had no resources, no fire engines to send to incidents. It's been a case of picking and choosing which incident they send firefighters to.
Steve Wright, thanks very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Well, earlier I spoke to the Labour Mayor of the West Midlands, Richard Parker, and began by asking him if the authorities had been taken by surprise by the sheer ferocity of the fires.
Absolutely. I think even talking to senior members of the fire service here in the West Midlands, they have seen nothing like this for their time in the fire service. And the chief fire officer has been in the fire service for almost 30 years. So I think it's, a very significant incident, of course, and it's relatively new as an incident like this in the UK. But sadly, I think it's given climatic change and climate change a sign of things to come.
That gets us straight into politics. What do we do?
Well, I think, look, initially today for me and the Prime Minister was about giving the community support they need and thanking the emergency services for their heroic efforts. But it raises some very significant issues, I think, for the country and governments internationally about the additional efforts we need to make to address the issues that give rise to global warming. There are things we're doing here in the West Midlands today with the Department of Environment that look in ways we can minimise the risk and the impact of global warming by the way we and where we build homes, attract investment, indeed, the way we plan our transport network in the future. But those are all responses and how we mitigate the risk of the impact as opposed to dealing with, of course, the driver.
What do we do about resilience? You're talking about adaptation here. Now, the Climate Change Committee, as you well know, only recently told the government we are way, way behind on this. How do we galvanise that when, goodness me, every aspect of the public purse is up for grabs and everybody wants a piece of the pie, including the fire service?
I'll be sitting down with the Chief Fire Officer to look at the lessons we can learn from this incident, but also how we can plan to mitigate events like this in the future. There are things we can do about the way we build homes, but we've also got to think about where those major risks are, and they are across the West Midlands conurbation. We know that greatest risks are where the urban conurbation faces onto open fields and grasslands, and they've got very dry, as we know, just because due to the climatic conditions. And frankly, we have to think about fire breaks across those sorts of grasslands that manage their impact. We need to ensure the fire service have access to the water resources they need when events like this occur.
The boss of the Fire Brigade Union is quite specific. He said it once, he said it several times to us earlier today. We need 5,000 more firefighters across the UK. Would you agree? Not necessarily with the figure, but the principle of that.
Well, I think what is the case is that the demands of the fire service are getting greater, and they are.
No, I didn't ask about the demands. I asked, do we need more firefighters? Is that central to the problem? Do you agree?
Well, no, I'll come back to my thesis that the demands on the fire service are greater. They're also facing very different demands today than they have in the past. And what we need to do is ensure that they are resourced in the right way, whether that's through additional firefighters and or the equipment and assets they use to fight fires. And that's why I think the Prime Minister quite rightly talked today quite openly about air support and learning the lessons from countries that have faced some of these issues for longer than we have, particularly in southern Europe and parts of the US.
Richard Parker, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
The West Midlands Mayor speaking to us earlier. Now, firefighters across Europe are struggling to contain a series of blazes as the latest wave of record-breaking heat sweeps across much of the continent. A wildfire on the Dalmatian coast in Croatia has killed at least one person and left dozens injured, with thousands of people forced to evacuate the tourist town of Omiš. In Italy, firefighters fought throughout the night to tackle a blaze approaching Lake Como, while in Spain, France and Germany, thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes due to the ongoing fires. Another train has derailed, this time in Essex. That's the day after two people were seriously injured when a train came off the tracks in East Sussex. Police said there were no reported injuries from today's incident, though Greater Anglia has urged passengers not to travel on that route until further notice. Network Rail said investigations into both incidents will look at all possible causes, saying the heat waves had presented exceptional challenges. Well, in Japan, there's been unprecedented rainfall, which has left at least 5 people dead and 1 still missing. Homes, roads and railway tracks in the cities of Chiba and Sakura, east of Tokyo, were flooded with 4.5 inches of rain falling in just 1 hour in Chiba. Thousands of people were left stranded at train stations and airports, while the torrential downpour knocked out power to nearly 70,000 homes.